Before we begin, take a breath. Feel the air moving in and out. You are not your thoughts, not your past, not even the story that brought you here. If this moment feels quiet, that is not emptiness, it is space. And in that space, you begin to wake up. If you wish to explore this depth of awareness, to live from stillness rather than from noise, subscribe and let us journey into the now together. There is a moment that arrives unannounced, like morning light touching a room you have lived in for years but never truly seen. It does not knock. It does not announce itself with thunder or revelation written across the sky. It simply appears, this moment, when you realize that the person you have been trying to become, the one you have been chasing through all those years of striving and seeking and desperate hoping, has always been a phantom. A beautiful, elaborate phantom constructed from the whispers of others, the expectations layered upon you like sediment, the fears that took root in soil you did not choose. And in that moment of seeing, something releases. Not dramatically, not with fanfare, but with the gentle sigh of a door finally opening after being pressed against for so long you forgot what it felt like to stand in the threshold without resistance. This is what happens when you finally choose yourself above all else. Not the small self, not the chattering voice that lives in constant commentary about what was and what might be, but the deeper self, the one that has been watching all along from a place of such profound stillness that you mistook its silence for absence. You have spent so many mornings waking into the familiar corridor of your thoughts, walking the same loops, touching the same worn grooves of worry and planning and remembering. The mind, that magnificent instrument, has become a room you cannot leave, its walls decorated with stories about who you are, who you must be, who you failed to become. And somewhere in the background of all this mental architecture, there has always been a gentle presence, patient as winter waiting for spring, that asks no questions and offers no judgments, that simply is. What does it mean to choose yourself? Not in the way the world speaks of self-care, though kindness toward the body and mind flows naturally from this deeper choosing. Not in the way of accumulation, adding more achievements to the pile, more validation, more proof of worthiness. No. To choose yourself is to recognize that beneath the turbulence of thought, beneath the endless stream of mental noise that you have mistaken for consciousness itself, there is something timelessly aware. Something that was present when you were 5 years old, staring at clouds, and is present now, here, in this very instant. The same awareness. Unchanged by all the years, all the stories, all the becoming and unbecoming. It has been waiting, this awareness, not for you to find it, but for you to remember that you have never been separate from it. The human condition is a curious thing. We are born into presence, into the raw immediacy of sensation and being. Watch a very young child exist, and you will see consciousness without the burden of self-concept. There is seeing, hearing, touching, tasting. There is response without the translator, without the voice that says, I am the one experiencing this, and this experience means something about me, and I must remember this experience to add to my collection of memories that prove I exist. The child simply is. And then, gradually, necessarily perhaps, the mind begins its work of creating separation. This is me. That is not me. This is good. That is bad. I want. I fear. I remember. I anticipate. Layer upon layer, the sense of a separate self emerges from the field of undivided awareness, like a whirlpool forming in water, appearing distinct and yet never actually separate from the whole. This self we construct is not an enemy. It is not wrong or bad or something to be destroyed. It is simply a function, a tool, a way of navigating the relative world of form and time and social interaction. But somewhere along the way, we forgot that it was a tool. We began to believe the whirlpool was the ocean. We identified completely with the constructed self, with its preferences and aversions, its memories and projections, its endless need to prove itself, defend itself, and prove itself. And in this identification, something essential was lost. Not actually lost, because awareness cannot be lost any more than space can disappear. But obscured, forgotten, covered over by layers of thought about thought until the original silence became like a distant star, still shining but barely visible through the haze. You have spent so much energy maintaining this constructed self. It is exhausting, is it not? The constant management of image, the vigilance required to ensure you are perceived correctly, understood properly, valued sufficiently. The mind runs its programs day and night, comparing, judging, strategizing, rehearsing conversations that have not happened, replaying ones that have, editing the script of your life to make it more palatable, more coherent, more defensible. And underneath all this activity, there is a tiredness. A deep fatigue that sleep does not touch because it is not the body that is weary. It is the false sense of being the one who must do all of this, must think all these thoughts, must carry all this psychological weight. What if I told you that you are not the thinker of your thoughts? This sounds strange, perhaps even threatening at first. If I am not my thoughts, then who am I? But stay with this. Watch your mind for a moment. Just watch. Do you decide what thought will arise next? Can you choose, right now, to think of absolutely nothing for the next 10 seconds? Try it. The mind continues its stream regardless of your intention. Thoughts arise from a source you do not control, appear in the space of awareness, and dissolve back into silence. You are not creating them any more than you are creating the beat of your heart or the digestion of your food. They simply happen. What you are, truly, is the awareness in which thoughts appear. The space. The openness. The consciousness that registers the thought, recognizes it, but is not defined by it. This recognition, this simple shift in perspective from being the thinker to being the awareness that notices thinking, is the beginning of freedom. It is so simple that the mind dismisses it. The ego, that sense of being a separate self, insists there must be more to it, some technique to master, some practice to perfect, some future moment when enlightenment will arrive like a package delivered to your door. But the truth is immediate. It is here. Now. In this very moment, there is awareness. You cannot doubt it. Even to doubt it, you must be aware of the doubt. Awareness is the only thing you can be absolutely certain of, more certain than the existence of the external world, more certain than memory, more certain than any concept or belief. I am aware. This is the foundation. Everything else is an appearance within that awareness. When you rest in this recognition, even for a moment, something shifts. The grip of identification loosens. You are still here, functioning, speaking, thinking when thinking is needed. But there is space around it all. The thoughts are no longer a prison. They are like clouds passing through sky. The sky does not struggle with the clouds. It does not identify as a cloudy sky or take pride in being a clear sky. It simply allows. It holds everything without being changed by anything. This is your true nature. Spacious. Allowing. Unchanging awareness within which all change occurs. But let us not make this into another spiritual concept to collect, another item on the list of things you know. The mind is clever. It will take even this truth and turn it into a new identity. I am aware. I am consciousness. I am enlightened. And suddenly awareness has become just another story, another costume for the ego to wear. This is why the teaching must be felt, not just understood. It must become lived experience, not philosophy. You cannot think your way into presence. You can only be present. And being present is the most natural thing in the world because it is what you already are. You have simply been too busy thinking about being present to notice that you already are. Listen to the sound of these words, and notice that there is a listening happening. Not a listener, necessarily, but listening itself. An openness to sound. Before the mind labels the sound, categorizes it, likes it or dislikes it, there is pure hearing. This is presence. When you taste food, before the thoughts about whether it is good or reminds you of something or is healthy enough, there is pure tasting. When you feel the air on your skin, before the mind complains about temperature or ignores it entirely in favor of mental narratives, there is pure sensation. This is always available. This direct contact with the aliveness of the present moment. It is not hidden. It is not far away. It is closer than your breath, more intimate than thought. The choice to prioritize this presence, this awareness, over the endless demands of the egoic mind is what we mean by choosing yourself. It is choosing reality over fantasy. Choosing now over the imaginary past and future. Choosing peace over the perpetual problem-solving that the mind insists is necessary. The mind will resist this, of course. It has been running the show for so long. It genuinely believes that if you stop paying constant attention to its worries and plans, everything will fall apart. But this is the lie that keeps you trapped. Life does not require constant mental management. In fact, most of what the mind worries about never happens. And most of what needs to be done gets done far more efficiently when it arises from presence rather than from anxious thinking. There is an intelligence that moves through all of life, an ordering principle that keeps your heart beating, that guides birds in migration, that turns seeds into forests. This intelligence is not separate from you. It is the deeper you, the you that exists prior to thought and will continue when thought ceases. When you choose presence over mind identification, you align with this intelligence. You move with life rather than against it. Decisions become clearer because they are not clouded by psychological fear and desire. Actions become more effective because they are rooted in awareness of what is rather than in projection of what should be. Relationships transform because you are no longer trying to get something from the other person to complete your sense of self. You meet them in presence, in the shared field of awareness, and there is a recognition beyond words. This does not mean you become passive or detached. Presence is not withdrawal from life. It is full engagement with life, but without the overlay of psychological resistance. You can still prefer certain outcomes. You can still work toward goals. You can still feel emotions, sometimes very intensely. But there is a quality of freedom in it all because you are not identified as the one to whom all of this is happening. You are the awareness within which it all appears. And from that spacious ground, you respond rather than react. You create rather than repeat. You love rather than need. The ego does not want to hear this. It perceives this teaching as a threat to its existence. And in a sense, it is. Not that the ego will be destroyed or that you will become a blank, emotionless being. But the tyranny of the ego, its absolute rule over your inner life, must come to an end. The ego is fear. It is the sense of being a separate, vulnerable entity in a hostile world, constantly under threat, constantly needing to defend and enhance itself. This fear has driven so much of human behavior, so much suffering, so much violence, both inner and outer. When you wake up from identification with this fear-based sense of self, the fear does not necessarily disappear entirely, but it is no longer who you are. It is recognized as a sensation, a pattern of thought, an old habit of the organism. You can feel it without being it. And when fear is simply allowed to be, without resistance or identification, it naturally dissolves like mist in morning sun. Choosing yourself above all else sounds selfish to the ego mind. It sounds like disregarding others, pursuing self-interest at the expense of the collective. But this is a misunderstanding born from the egoic paradigm itself. When you choose presence, when you choose awareness over identification with thought, you are actually choosing the deepest commonality that connects all beings. Everyone has this same awareness at their core. Everyone is this consciousness appearing as a temporary form. When you recognize this in yourself, you simultaneously recognize it in others. Compassion becomes natural, not forced. Love flows freely because there is no longer a separate self that must be protected. The dissolution of ego boundaries does not lead to chaos. It leads to harmony. It leads to a recognition of unity that honors diversity. It leads to action that serves the whole because you intuitively sense that the whole is what you are. Let me offer you a doorway into this experience. Right now, notice that you are breathing. You do not have to make breathing happen. It is happening. Feel the sensation of air moving, the gentle rise and fall, the pause between breaths. In this noticing, where are you? Are you in your head, watching from behind your eyes? Or is there simply awareness of sensation, happening nowhere, everywhere, here? This awareness has no location. It is not inside your body. The body appears within awareness, just as thoughts do, just as emotions do, just as the entire perceived world does. You are not a tiny consciousness trapped inside a body, looking out at a world separate from yourself. You are the awareness within which body, thoughts, world all arise. This shift in perspective changes everything. From the perspective of the separate self, life is a constant problem to be solved. There is you, and there is the world, and somehow you must navigate this world, get what you need, avoid what threatens you, make your mark before time runs out. This is exhausting. This is the source of endless suffering. But from the perspective of awareness, there is no fundamental problem. There is simply what is. Life unfolding in its mysterious way. You are not separate from this unfolding. You are an expression of it. When you stop resisting what is, when you stop demanding that this moment be different than it is, a profound peace becomes accessible. Not the peace of having everything you want. The peace of wanting nothing other than what is. This does not mean you do not take action. It does not mean you accept abuse or injustice or remain passive in the face of harm. Presence is fully engaged. But the action comes from a different source. Instead of acting from ego, from the need to prove or protect or possess, you act from awareness, from clarity, from love. These actions are far more powerful because they are not contaminated by personal agenda. They serve what is needed in the moment rather than what the ego wants. The mind will say this is all very nice philosophy, but how do I actually do this? How do I choose awareness over identification? And here is the beautiful simplicity. You do not do it. Doing is still the activity of the ego mind. Instead, you notice. You become aware of awareness itself. You shift attention from the content of experience to the context, from the movie to the screen on which the movie plays. Right now, thoughts are happening, sensations are occurring, perhaps emotions are present. Can you notice the space in which all of this is happening? Can you sense the awareness that is here, always here, prior to any experience? This is not something you achieve in the future. It is what you are now. You just have not been paying attention to it because you have been so absorbed in the movie. When this recognition stabilizes, not as an idea but as lived reality, your relationship with everything changes. Problems do not disappear, but they are no longer overwhelming because you are no longer identified as the one who has the problem. Pain still occurs in the body, but there is space around it, and suffering, the mental resistance to pain, diminishes. Thoughts still arise, but they no longer define you. You can observe them with interest or let them pass without engagement. Life still presents challenges, but they are met with a kind of curious openness rather than with fear and resistance. There is a quality of flow, of ease, even in difficulty, because you are no longer fighting with reality. This is what it means to surrender. Not surrender as defeat, not surrender as giving up what you care about, but surrender as releasing the illusion of control. The mind believes it must control everything, must think its way through every situation, must plan and worry and strategize endlessly to ensure survival and success. But this control is largely illusory. Most of what happens in your life, most of what happens in the world, is beyond your control. The only thing you truly have any influence over is this moment, this breath, this present awareness. And even here, influence is perhaps too strong a word. There is simply response. Life presenting itself, awareness recognizing it, response arising. No central controller needed. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, when you stop trying to make this moment into something other than what it is, energy that was bound up in resistance becomes available. This is not a small thing. So much of your energy has been spent in arguing with reality, in wishing things were different, and replaying the past and rehearsing the future. When that energy is freed, you have access to a vitality that may have been dormant for years. Creativity flows more easily. Joy arises spontaneously. Gratitude becomes natural because you are actually present to receive the gifts that each moment offers. Even simple things, sunlight on a wall, the taste of water, the feeling of your own aliveness, become infused with a quiet wonder when you are present to them. The ego is terrified of this surrender because it equates surrender with annihilation. If I stop controlling, if I stop defending my position, if I stop trying to be someone, I will cease to exist. And there is a death that happens here, but it is not the death the ego fears. It is the death of the false self, the constructed identity, the one who never existed as anything more than a collection of thoughts and beliefs and memories. What dies is the illusion. What remains is what has always been here. Awareness. Presence. The eternal now. Your true self is deathless because it was never born. It is the ground of being itself, appearing as this particular form for a while, and when the form dissolves, the awareness does not end. It simply continues, as it always has, as it always will. But we need not concern ourselves with death right now. Life is here, demanding our attention, offering itself moment by moment. The question is whether we will meet life directly or whether we will remain lost in the maze of mental storytelling about life. Every moment is an opportunity to choose. Not a big dramatic choice, but a simple shift of attention. Am I present? Or am I lost in thought? When you notice you are lost in thought, that very noticing is presence. You do not need to judge yourself for being lost. The judgment is just another thought. You simply notice, and in the noticing, you are already present again. It is that simple. That immediate. This is the practice, if we can call it that. Not hours of meditation, though stillness certainly helps. But simply remembering, again and again, to come back to the now. To feel the aliveness in your body. To notice the space around and within all experience. To be here. Here is where life is. Not in the remembered past, though memory serves its function. Not in the imagined future, though planning has its place. But here, now, in the direct experience of this moment. The past exists only as a thought happening now. The future exists only as a thought happening now. Now is all there ever is. And yet we spend so little time actually here. The mind is almost always somewhere else, rehashing, projecting, comparing, judging. It has become habitual to live in time rather than in the timeless present. But the present moment is the only point of power. It is the only place where life actually happens. Everything else is memory or imagination. When you truly choose yourself, when you choose presence over the mind's endless commentary, you step out of psychological time. The clock still ticks. Days pass. The body ages. But the tyranny of time loosens. There is a quality of spaciousness that enters your experience. You are no longer racing toward some future moment when you will finally be okay, finally be enough, finally arrive. You recognize that you already are what you have been seeking. Not the psychological self with all its attributes and achievements, but the awareness that has been present through every moment of your life. This awareness does not need to become anything. It is already complete. It is already whole. It is already home. This realization does not come through effort. It comes through grace, through a letting go, through a willingness to stop seeking and simply be. The spiritual search can become another trap for the ego, another way to defer presence. When I am enlightened, then I will be at peace. But enlightenment is not a future state. It is the recognition of what is already true. You are already the awareness you seek. You have never been anything else. The clouds of thought have obscured this truth, but they have not changed it. The sun does not cease to exist because clouds cover it. It is always there, always shining. Your task is not to create the sun. Your task is simply to notice that the clouds are not you. You are the sky. You are the space. You are the awareness in which all weather passes. From this place of presence, life becomes vastly simpler. Not easier, necessarily. Challenges still arise. Pain still occurs. But the complication of psychological suffering diminishes. You meet what is with a kind of alert acceptance. Not resignation, but a clear-eyed recognition of reality as it is. And from this recognition, appropriate action arises naturally. You do not need to figure everything out. You do not need to have a complete plan for your life. You simply need to be present to this moment, and the next moment will reveal itself. Life has its own intelligence. Trust it. Trust the awareness that you are to know what is needed in each moment. The people in your life will notice something different about you, though they may not be able to name it. There will be a quality of spaciousness in your presence that allows others to relax. When you are not defending an identity, not trying to prove anything, not lost in mental narratives, you become a clearing in which others can simply be. This is one of the greatest gifts you can offer. Not advice, not solutions, not your story to top their story. Just presence. Just awareness meeting awareness. In that meeting, healing happens. Understanding arises. Love flows. Love is not what the ego thinks it is. The ego loves conditionally. I will love you if you meet my needs, if you confirm my sense of self, if you do not threaten me. This is not really love. It is need masquerade as love. True love arises from presence. When you are present, when you are resting in awareness rather than in ego, you recognize the other person as awareness as well. You see past their personality, their story, their defenses, to the essential being that they are. And in that recognition, there is love. Not as an emotion that comes and goes, but as the fundamental nature of consciousness recognizing itself in another form. This love asks nothing. It simply is. And it transforms everything it touches. Choosing yourself above all else is choosing this love. Not the love that needs something from the other. The love that you are. When you stop abandoning yourself to the demands of the ego, when you stop seeking yourself in achievements and relationships and possessions, when you stop waiting for some future moment to be happy, you discover that happiness is your nature. Not happiness as pleasure or excitement. Happiness is the deep peace of being that requires no cause. It is simply what awareness feels like when it is not obscured by mental noise. Joy is your true state. Not the shallow joy of getting what you want. The profound joy of being what you are. This may sound abstract, but it is the most concrete reality there is. More real than the chair you sit on, more real than the thoughts that pass through your mind. Presence is the only thing that is actually happening. Everything else is interpretation, memory, projection. When you rest in presence, even for a moment, you know this. You know it not as a concept but as direct experience. And once tasted, this recognition begins to call you back again and again. The mind may reassert itself, the ego may regain its foothold, but there is now a knowing. A remembering that is available whenever you choose it. I am not my thoughts. I am not my story. I am the awareness in which all of this appears. The transformation that occurs when you live from this understanding is both subtle and profound. Outwardly, your life may not change dramatically. You may have the same job, the same relationships, the same daily routines. But inwardly, everything is different. There is a freedom that was not there before. A spaciousness. A sense of being held by something vast and benevolent that you cannot name but can feel. Life is no longer a burden to carry. It is a mystery to experience. You are no longer trying to get somewhere or become something. You are simply here, alive, aware, present to the unfathomable miracle of existence itself. And in being here, truly here, you discover that this moment is enough. Not perfect, not what the ego would have chosen, but enough. Complete in itself. Whole. When you stop demanding that life be different, when you stop resisting what is, there is a relaxation at the very core of your being. The fight is over. Not because you have won or lost, but because you have stepped out of the paradigm where there was a fight at all. Life is not your enemy. It never was. It is the very source and substance of what you are. You are life itself, temporarily experiencing itself as a human being. And when you know this, really know it, fear loses its grip. What is there to fear when you are not separate from life, when you are not a vulnerable fragment trying to protect itself against a hostile universe? You are the universe experiencing itself. You are consciousness appearing as form. You are the eternal expressing itself in time. This is not something you achieve through effort or practice or years of discipline. It is recognized. It is allowed. It is surrendered into. The moment you stop trying to get it, it is here. The moment you stop seeking, you find what you have always been. And then the spiritual journey, which seemed so important, is revealed to have been going nowhere all along. There was never any distance to travel. You were always home. You simply forgot, and now you remember. Remembering is not a one-time event. The mind is strong. The habit of identification is deep. You will forget again. You will get lost in thought, in emotion, in drama. This is not failure. It is simply how the process unfolds. Each time you notice you have forgotten, you have already remembered. Each time you recognize you are lost in thought, you are already present. There is no need for self-judgment. No need to make this into another problem to solve. You simply notice, smile perhaps at the familiar trap, and return to the breath, to the body, to the present moment. Return to the awareness that has been here all along, patiently waiting for your attention. This patience is one of the qualities of awareness. It does not rush. It does not demand. It simply is, always available, like the sky that holds all weather without complaint. You can rest in this. You can trust this. When everything else feels uncertain, when the world seems chaotic, when your life appears to be falling apart, awareness remains steady. It is the one constant in a universe of change. And you are that awareness. Not the temporary form that calls itself by your name. Not the collection of memories and thoughts and beliefs. But the consciousness that illuminates all of it. The light by which everything is known. To know yourself as this awareness is to be free. Free from the past that weighs you down. Free from the future that fills you with anxiety. Free from the need to be anyone other than what you are in this moment. This freedom is not the ego's freedom to do whatever it wants without consequence. It is the freedom of no longer being bound by the ego's endless demands and fears. It is the freedom to respond to life freshly, creatively, lovingly, without the burden of a defended identity. And as this freedom stabilizes, as presence becomes more familiar than absence, something begins to happen. The world does not change, but your perception of it does. Where you once saw only problems, you begin to see opportunities for awareness. Where you once felt only stress, you begin to sense the aliveness pulsing beneath the surface of experience. Colors seem richer. Sounds become clearer. The simplest moment contains infinite depth when you are truly present to it. You realize that you have been living on the surface of life, skimming across it with the mind, never diving deep into the actual lived experience of this moment. And now you begin to dive. Not by doing anything special. Simply by being here. Fully. Completely. Without reservation. This is choosing yourself. Not the small self that needs constant validation and protection. The vast self that you truly are. The awareness that contains multitudes, that is large enough to hold all experience without being diminished by any of it. When you choose this, when you prioritize presence over the mind's narratives, everything begins to align. Not in the way the ego wants, but in a way that serves your deepest truth. Relationships that no longer serve your evolution fall away naturally. Work that does not resonate with your essential being becomes unbearable, pushing you towards something more authentic. The voice of intuition, long drowned out by mental noise, begins to be heard again. You know things without knowing how you know them. You make decisions from a place of inner clarity rather than from fear or desire. This is not magic. It is simply what happens when you stop interfering with the natural intelligence of life. The ego believes it must control everything, but control is exhausting and largely ineffective. When you surrender control, when you trust life to unfold as it will, you align with a power far greater than the individual will. Call it life, call it consciousness, call it God if that word has meaning for you. The name does not matter. What matters is the recognition that you are not separate from this power. You are an expression of it. And when you stop resisting, when you stop trying to force life to conform to your will, this power flows through you with remarkable grace. People often ask what to do with their lives once they wake up to presence. What is the purpose if not to achieve, to accumulate, to leave a mark on the world? And the answer is that purpose arises naturally from presence. Not a manufactured purpose imposed from outside, but an organic unfolding of your unique expression. When you are present, when you are aligned with awareness, you naturally contribute what is yours to give. Not from ego, not from the need to be significant, but from the simple joy of expressing life through this particular form. Some people create art. Some people serve others. Some people simply live quietly, their presence itself a gift to the world. There is no hierarchy. No one path is better than another. What matters is that you are true to what moves through you, that you honor the expression that is uniquely yours. And you do this not for recognition, not for reward, but because it is your nature. A tree does not question whether it should grow. A river does not wonder if it has permission to flow. They simply are what they are, expressing their nature without self-consciousness. This is how life wants to move through you as well. Freely. Spontaneously. Without the interference of a self that must plan and control and ensure everything turns out right. When you get out of the way, when you let presence guide you, life flows with a rightness that the mind could never orchestrate. Synchronicities occur. Doors open. What is needed arrives. Not because you are special or blessed, but because this is how life operates when we stop resisting it. The beauty of this teaching is that it requires nothing from you except willingness. Willingness to question your assumptions. Willingness to look beyond the thoughts that define you. Willingness to rest in the not knowing, in the space before answers form. The mind hates not knowing. It frantically searches for certainty, for solid ground, for something to grasp and hold on to. But truth lives in the not knowing. Presence is found in the gap between thoughts, in the silence before words, and the stillness that underlies all movement. When you can rest here, in this groundless ground, you discover a security that does not depend on circumstances. You are held by something that cannot fail because it is what you fundamentally are. This sounds paradoxical to the mind. How can I be secure if there is nothing to hold on to? But paradox is the language of truth. Life itself is paradoxical. You are both form and emptiness, both the wave and the ocean, both the finite and the infinite. The mind tries to resolve the paradox, to choose one side or the other. But awakening is the capacity to hold both, to be comfortable with contradiction, to rest in the mystery without needing to solve it. This is mature spirituality. Not the certainty of dogma, not the rigidity of belief systems, but the fluid openness of not knowing while simultaneously trusting completely. Trust is essential. Not blind trust in some external authority, but trust in awareness itself. Trust in the intelligence that beats your heart and heals your wounds and dreams your dreams. This intelligence is not separate from you. It is the deepest you. And it knows what it is doing even when the surface mind is confused and afraid. When you trust this deeper intelligence, when you surrender to presence, you are not abdicating responsibility. You are actually becoming truly responsible for the first time. Responsible not in the sense of shouldering burdens, but in the sense of being able to respond, moment by moment, to what life presents. This response comes from awareness, not from conditioned patterns. It is fresh. It is appropriate. It is aligned with the whole. Living from presence does not mean you never feel negative emotions. Sadness arises. Anger appears. Fear moves through you. But these emotions are no longer problems to solve or enemies to defeat. They are simply energies moving through the field of awareness. When you do not resist them, when you allow them to be without identifying as the one who is sad or angry or afraid, they flow through naturally and dissolve. It is resistance that creates suffering. It is the thought, I should not feel this, or something is wrong because I feel this, that turns natural emotion into psychological pain. When you simply feel what you feel, when you allow the energy to move without adding the story about what it means, emotions become like weather passing through the sky of awareness. Sometimes stormy, sometimes calm, but the sky itself remains unchanged. This is freedom. Not freedom from emotion, but freedom within emotion. Not freedom from thoughts, but freedom from being tyrannized by thoughts. Not freedom from life's challenges, but freedom to meet those challenges from a place of centered presence rather than reactive fear. This freedom is available now. Not after years of practice. Not when you become good enough or wise enough or enlightened enough. Now. In this moment. You simply have to notice that you are already free. The bondage exists only in the mind, only in the identification with thoughts and emotions as who you are. When you see through this identification, when you recognize yourself as the awareness prior to all content, freedom is self-evident. And from this freedom, love naturally arises. Not the needy love that seeks completion in another. Not the conditional love that gives in order to receive. But the unconditional love that is the very nature of awareness itself. When you are not defending a separate self, when you are not trying to get something from life or from others, you are love. Not feeling love as an emotion, though that may arise. But being love is your fundamental nature. This love radiates naturally, without effort, touching everything in your field of awareness with a gentle acceptance. It does not mean you never set boundaries or that you allow yourself to be mistreated. Love is not weakness. But boundaries come from clarity, not from fear. And when you must say no, it is said from presence, not from the reactive ego. The world needs this presence more than it needs anything else. Not more doing, more striving, more solutions created from the same level of consciousness that created the problems. What is needed is a shift in consciousness itself. A shift from ego to presence. From separation to unity. From fear to love. And this shift does not happen through grand gestures or revolutionary movements, though these may arise as expressions of it. It happens one person at a time, one moment at a time, as individuals wake up from the dream of separation and recognize their true nature as awareness itself. You are not here by accident. This moment, this teaching finding its way to you, is part of a larger unfolding. Not fate in the sense of predetermined destiny, but the natural intelligence of life bringing you what you need when you are ready to receive it. Something in you called this message forth. Something in you knew it was time to wake up, to stop postponing presence, to choose yourself above the demands of the conditioned mind. Honor that calling. Trust it. It is the voice of your deepest truth, the whisper of awareness inviting you home. Home is not a place. It is not something you arrive at after a long journey. Home is here. Now. In the simple awareness of being. When you stop searching, when you stop trying to become something other than what you are, you realize you never left home. You only thought you did. The prodigal son returns, and the celebration begins. Not because anything has changed externally. Because internally, you have recognized what was always true. You are whole. You are complete. You are already what you have been seeking. This recognition brings with it a profound relaxation. The spiritual search, which may have consumed years of your life, is revealed to have been a beautiful and necessary detour. You needed to exhaust the ego's strategies. You needed to try everything, to read all the books, to follow all the teachers, to practice all the techniques, until you finally realized that what you sought was not in any of them. It was in you. It is you. The teacher can point, but you must look. And when you look, really look, not with the mind but with awareness itself, you see. You see that there is no one looking. There is only seeing. There is no one being aware. There is only awareness. And this awareness is what you are, what you have always been, what you cannot not be. From this seeing, life continues. You still have a personality. You still have preferences and tendencies. The ego does not vanish completely. But its absolute rule is broken. There is now space around the egoic patterns. You can see them arising, recognize them for what they are, and choose whether to engage with them or let them pass. This is the beginning of conscious living. Not perfection. Not permanent bliss. But an ongoing recognition of presence, interrupted by forgetfulness, returned to again and again. This is the rhythm of awakening. Presence, forgetting, remembering. Each time you remember, the recognition deepens. Each time you return to now, it becomes easier to stay. And gradually, subtly, your life reorganizes itself around this truth. You find yourself less interested in activities that pull you away from presence. You find yourself drawn to simplicity, to silence, to depth rather than surface. The drama that once consumed you becomes less compelling. You can watch it, perhaps even participate in it when necessary, but you are no longer lost in it. There is a part of you that remains untouched, aware, witnessing everything from a place of profound peace. This witness is not cold or detached. It is warm with the love that arises when you see clearly, when you are not distorted by personal agenda. Other people may not understand this change in you. They may even feel threatened by it, especially if your presence challenges their own identification with ego. This is natural. Let them be where they are. You cannot force anyone to wake up. You can only be present yourself, and perhaps your presence will create a space in which others feel safe enough to explore their own depths. But do not make it your mission to enlighten others. This is just another ego game. Your only responsibility is to remain present, to choose awareness over identification, moment by moment. If your presence serves others, beautiful. If not, that is fine too. Presence is its own reward. It needs no validation. As you stabilize in this recognition, you may notice that your relationship with time shifts. You no longer live in constant anticipation of the future or in regret about the past. You are here, now, and now, and now. Each moment fresh. Each moment complete. There is a quality of timelessness even as the clock continues to tick. You are no longer trying to get somewhere or become someone. You are simply being. And in this being, there is a richness that the mind, always racing ahead or falling behind, never experiences. The present moment contains infinite depth. A lifetime could be spent exploring the textures and nuances of a single breath. Not that you need to do this, but the potential is there. The aliveness is there. Most people rush past it, lost in thought, never knowing what they are missing. What they are missing is life itself. The actual lived experience of existence, unfiltered by mental commentary. When you taste this, even for a moment, everything changes. You realize what you have been doing. You have been living in your head, in a virtual reality of thought, while actual reality was happening all around you, waiting to be noticed. And actual reality is far more interesting, far more beautiful, far more alive than the mental simulation. The mind is a wonderful tool for certain things, but it is a terrible master. It creates a black and white copy of life and insists that this copy is real. But when you step out of the mind and into presence, you see color again. You hear music again. You feel the pulse of existence moving through you, as you. This pulse is always here. It does not come and go. It is the constant background, the field within which all experience arises. Some call it the hum of existence, the vibration of being. You can feel it in your body when you are very still, very present. It is not imagination. It is the felt sense of aliveness itself. This aliveness is what you are at the most fundamental level. Not your thoughts about being alive. Not your story about who you are and what your life means. But the raw, direct experience of existence. Before thought. Before interpretation. Just this. Just here. Just now. And in just this, just here, just now, there is everything. All the peace you have been seeking. All the love you have been craving. All the wholeness you have been trying to achieve. It is already here. It has always been here. You simply were not present to receive it because you were lost in the mind's endless seeking. The mind says, yes, but this cannot be it. It is too simple. Too ordinary. Enlightenment must be something more special, more dramatic, more conclusive. And this is precisely why the mind never finds it. It is looking for something extraordinary when truth is the most ordinary thing there is. It is ordinary because it is always here, always available, the constant factor in every single moment of your life. You have been looking past it your entire life, searching for something more, something else, something that will finally satisfy the ego's hunger. But the ego's hunger cannot be satisfied. It is insatiable by design. No matter what you achieve, acquire, or experience, the ego will want more. It will move the goalpost. Yes, but what about this? What about that? Surely I need this one more thing, and then I will be happy. This is the trap. Endless deferral of presence in favor of a fantasized future where everything will finally be okay. But that future never comes. There is always something more. This is the hamster wheel of the ego-driven life. Running and never arriving because there is nowhere to arrive. The only place you can ever be is here. The only time you can ever experience is now. When this lands, not as an idea but as lived reality, the hamster wheel stops. You step off. You stand still. And in that stillness, you discover what you have been running toward was right here all along. Not a thing to achieve. Not a state to attain. But the simple recognition of what is. Presence recognizing itself. Awareness aware of awareness. In that recognition, there is completion. Not the completion of finishing something, but the completion of wholeness. Nothing missing. Nothing needed. Just this. And this is enough. More than enough. It is everything. This does not mean you stop having goals or desires or preferences. You are still a human being with a life to live. But the relationship to goals changes. They are no longer desperately needed to complete you. They are simply movements within presence, things that may or may not happen, and you are fine either way. There is an ease, a lightness, that enters your relationship with outcomes. You do what is yours to do, you give what is yours to give, and you let go of attachment to results. This is karma yoga, the yoga of action without attachment. Not detachment in the sense of not caring, but non-attachment in the sense of not needing things to be a certain way in order to be at peace. Peace is your nature. It does not depend on conditions. When you know this, when you have tasted the unconditioned peace that is always here beneath the surface turbulence of thoughts and emotions, you stop making your peace conditional. You stop saying, I will be at peace when this happens or when that changes. You are at peace now, or you notice that you are not at peace and you inquire into what story you are believing that is disturbing your peace. Almost always, it is a story about past or future. Almost always, it is a story that says this moment should be different than it is. And when you see the story for what it is, just a thought, just a mental construct, its power to disturb you diminishes. This is the practice of presence. Not sitting meditation, though that can support it. Not special techniques or complicated teachings. Simply noticing when you are lost in thought, recognizing the story you are telling yourself, and coming back to the direct experience of this moment. What is actually happening right now, beyond the story? Feel the sensations in your body. Notice the sounds in your environment. Sense the quality of your breath. This is reality. Everything else is mental fabrication. And when you rest in reality, in what is actually here rather than in what the mind says about what is here, peace is natural. You do not create it. You simply stop disturbing it with mental noise. The peace that passes understanding is not a peace that comes from understanding. It is the peace that is present when understanding stops, when the mind's attempt to figure everything out is seen as futile and is released. You do not need to understand your life. You do not need to know why things happen or what everything means. You can simply be here, alive, aware, open to this moment as it is. This openness is not passive. It is the most active state there is because it is fully engaged with life as it actually unfolds rather than with mental projections about life. From this openness, true intelligence operates. Not the cleverness of the mind, but the wisdom of awareness itself. This wisdom is always available. It does not require years of study or accumulation of knowledge. It arises spontaneously when you are present, when you meet life from awareness rather than from conditioned patterns. You know what to say. You know what to do. Not because you have figured it out, but because the intelligence that runs the entire universe is not separate from you. It is flowing through you. When you get out of the way, When you stop interfering with your clever plans and strategies, this intelligence can express itself through your words and actions. This is what is meant by being an instrument of the divine. Not that you are special or chosen, but that you have surrendered your personal will in favor of a deeper intelligence that knows what it is doing. The mind resists this surrender because it sounds like loss of control. But you never had control. The sense of being a separate self in control of your life is the grand illusion. Life is living you. Consciousness is aware of itself through your eyes, through your ears, through your sensations. You are not a separate entity having consciousness. You are consciousness appearing as a temporary entity. When you see this, really see it, the question of control becomes irrelevant. There is no controller and no controlled. There is simply life unfolding in its mysterious way, and you are that unfolding. This is the ultimate letting go. Not letting go of things, not letting go of people, but letting go of the one who would let go. The ego dissolving into awareness like a wave dissolving back into ocean. The wave does not die. It simply recognizes it was never separate from the ocean. It was always ocean, temporarily appearing as a distinct form. And you are the same. You are awareness, temporarily appearing as this person with this name, this history, this personality. But these are just the waves on the surface. Beneath, you are the ocean. Vast. Timeless. One with all that is. From this recognition, compassion flows naturally. When you see that everyone is the same awareness appearing in different forms, how can you truly hate anyone? How can you see anyone as fundamentally other? Their behavior may be unconscious. Their ego may be causing harm. But beneath all of that, they are what you are. Consciousness. Awareness. Being. When you recognize this, you can respond to unconscious behavior without taking it personally, without adding your own unconsciousness to the situation. You can see clearly what needs to be done, if anything, and do it from presence rather than from reaction. This is what the world needs now. People who can act from presence rather than from fear and ego. The problems humanity faces: environmental destruction, violence, inequality, suffering of all kinds, these all stem from the same root cause. The illusion of separation. The ego-driven consciousness that sees everything as other, as object to be used or obstacle to overcome. When enough people wake up from this illusion, when enough people recognize their true nature as awareness itself, the collective consciousness shifts. New solutions become possible. New ways of being together emerge. Not through force or effort, but through the natural intelligence of life flowing through awakened humans. You are part of this shift. Your awakening is not just personal. It contributes to the collective. Every moment you choose presence over identification with thought, you are not only freeing yourself. You are adding to the field of presence available to all beings. Consciousness is not individual. It only appears that way. At the deepest level, there is one consciousness experiencing itself through billions of perspectives. When you wake up, when you recognize yourself as this one consciousness, you are helping all beings wake up. Not through preaching or proselytizing, but simply by being present. Your presence is a gift to the world. And the beautiful paradox is that you do not do this for the world. You do not make it a burden or a mission. You simply rest in your own true nature, and the benefit spreads naturally, effortlessly. You choose yourself, not the small separate self, but the vast aware self that you truly are. And in choosing this, you are simultaneously choosing all beings because there is no separation. What serves your deepest truth serves the whole. What brings you to presence brings the world closer to peace. Not the peace of absence of conflict, but the peace of recognizing the underlying unity that holds all apparent diversity. This peace is calling you. It has been calling you your entire life. Every moment of dissatisfaction, every experience of suffering, every sense that something is missing, these were calls to wake up, invitations to look deeper, to question your assumptions, to see through the illusion of the separate self. You may have answered the call many times without recognizing what you were doing. Every time you were fully absorbed in a beautiful sunset, every time you lost yourself in music or art or nature, every time you felt a moment of unconditional love, you were touching presence. You were briefly free from the prison of the thinking mind. Those moments showed you what is possible. They were glimpses of your true nature. Now the invitation is to make this your primary reality rather than a rare exception. To live from presence more than you live from thought. To recognize awareness as what you are rather than as an occasional experience. This is not difficult. In fact, it is the easiest thing in the world because it requires no effort. It only requires willingness. Willingness to stop, to be still, to notice. Willingness to question the stories that define you. Willingness to rest in not knowing. Willingness to be here, now, as you are, without needing to be anywhere else or anyone else. Every teacher who has ever awakened has pointed to the same truth. The words differ. The cultural contexts differ. The practices and paths differ. But the truth is always the same. You are not what you think you are. You are awareness itself. And in recognizing this, you are free. Free from the past that haunts you. Free from the future that frightens you. Free from the need to be anyone other than what you are in this moment. This freedom is your birthright. You do not need to earn it. You do not need to deserve it. You only need to recognize it. And recognition happens now, or it does not happen at all, because now is all there is. So let these words dissolve. Let the concepts fall away. Return to the felt sense of being here, alive, aware. Feel the breath moving in your body. Notice the sounds around you. Sense the aliveness pulsing through every cell. This is you. Not the you that has a story and a personality and a history, but the you that is aware of all of that. The you that has been present through every moment of your life, unchanging, witnessing everything, touched by nothing. This awareness is what you have always been seeking. And here it is. Here you are. Not separate from the seeking, but the very awareness in which seeking appeared and now dissolves. Choosing yourself is recognizing this. Recognizing that you are not the character in the story. You are the awareness in which the story unfolds. And from this recognition, everything becomes sacred. Every moment becomes holy because it is all consciousness experiencing itself. There is nowhere to go because there is nothing that is not consciousness. Nothing to achieve because consciousness is already complete. Nothing to become because you already are what you seek to be. This is the end of seeking and the beginning of true life. Not life as survival or achievement or accumulation, but life as the conscious celebration of existence itself. You are that celebration. Right now. In this moment. Not in some future when you are more spiritual or more awakened or more worthy. Now. Exactly as you are. With all your imperfections and uncertainties and questions. The awareness that you are does not judge any of this. It simply holds it all in loving attention. And when you rest as this awareness rather than as the judged one, peace floods in. Not as something you acquire, but as something you remember. You are peace. You are love. You are the presence that illuminates all experience. This is what you finally choose when you choose yourself above all else. Not the self-image. Not the personality. But the essential being that you are and have always been. And now, the words fade, but the silence remains. If you felt the stillness within this message, stay. Subscribe, not to follow, but to remember again and again that presence is always here, waiting beneath every thought. The true teaching is not in the words you just heard, but in the space between them.